A big thank you to Harjot and Komal, along with Laura, Mila, and Kate for your vulnerability and inspiration. We will be better leaders because of your stories. Finally, we've made it to the last story on our program, and that is the third important story that leaders tell. Where are we going? Which will be a story from our Year 3 RVLA team.
We need to know ourselves first. Who am I? And declare it to others. Then we need to really know our teams. Who are we? And make sure we have an understanding of what it means to belong on that team. Only then do we get to a place where leaders need to be vision casters. Leaders are people of influence, and they help build the future by sharing their past experiences and then sharing a vision.
There's a concept in Western African philosophy known as Ubuntu. It essentially says that if we are, then I am. Through a leadership lens, this would indicate that stories of us as a collective constitute us as leaders. According to Christine Cavanaugh-Simmons, this is the final stories leaders tell. Where have we been and where are we going? And that's how we will end our summit today. Please welcome up to represent our stories and the stories of the Year 3 collectives, please welcome up Emma and Eden.
I think it's only just starting to hit me and Eden now. Like, we only just realized, I think, that this is, like, one of our last speeches. Oh, my God, now I'm going to cry.
If we cry a little bit, it's because we love this very much. Now we're going to do our thing.
Now we're going to do our thing. Yeah, just in case it seems hard to get through. Well, hi, everyone. My name is Emma, and this is Eden, and we are 2 out of the 10 Year 3s here at RVLA. We're kind of all scattered across the rooms, but could the Year 3s maybe give, like, a bit of a wave? There's only 10 little hands you got to look at.
We are so excited to be here with you all today to give you a taste of what our group has been up to this year. Year 3 of this program, as you just heard, asks the question, where are we going? And is almost entirely self-directed. This year's group faced a very unique challenge as we were navigating what student leadership looked like in the wake of the pandemic. I know, COVID, to some of us it seems like a distant event already, but if there was one thing every single Year 3 student knew coming into this year, it was that it had left quite an impact. There was this palpable air of disconnection in our communities, in our schools, in our leadership classrooms. The people who had once cared most lost the energy to care. Traditions and lessons that had been passed through buildings for years were put on hold and then lost. There was a distinct disconnection between what was and what is. It was as if someone had pulled a domino from the middle of the line and we were all standing around waiting for the next thing to happen without the push to do it. So, when we were asked the question, where are we going? The first thing we had to rectify was, how do we get back to where we were? How do we harness the tools and knowledge we have to ensure this new era of leaders has what they need to succeed?
So with those questions in mind, I'm going to take you guys through a bit of a story as to how it was that we created our legacy project. So imagine this. You've just come out of summer holidays. You're around about like 2 or 3 weeks into school. And you're already done with all the homework, and you're already done with having to wake up before noon at this point. But then you receive an email from your absolute favorite teacher in the entire world, Miss Curry, and she lets you know that you guys are going on vacation. The only thing that I'm going to say is make sure you read the whole email before you get excited about going to Hawaii, because we weren't going to Hawaii. Turns out we were actually going into the middle of nowhere with no cell service at all, and just about like a wooden shack with a queen-size bed that fit about 5 17-year-olds all cuddled up together for one night. But you know what it is that I heard when I stepped on the bus the morning that we went on this trip? The second that I stepped on that bus, half asleep, I heard from left and right, all around the bus, I heard, you know what I did this summer? Hey, guess what me and my friends did this summer? Hey, you know what I loved? I went on this big adventure this summer. It was stories coming from all of our mouths, stories left, right, and center. And when we arrived at the campsite, these stories only got longer and more fascinating. I mean, we were up till who knows what time laughing about first kiss stories and embarrassing moments from our childhood, unless you ask Robin Curry, because technically it was lights up by 10. And in these moments that we laughed and we played and we giggled, we remembered why we had chosen to be here and why it is that we've continuously chosen to make that choice every time we received an email detailing our next adventure together in RVLA. In November of last year, our Year 3 students held the Rebooting Student Leadership Conference. We were able to host students from across the division right here in this room, including past RVLA students as well. The energy in the room as we brought together students from the past and students from right here, right now, for the first time since COVID, was unlike anything else. We were fortunate enough to engage in conversations with previous RVLA students and hear the hilarious and motivational stories from when they were where we are today. We even got to hear from our keynote speaker, Drew Dudley, who inspired us all moving forward for the rest of the year. That was a day I'll never forget and a story that I'll never get tired of telling. Through all of this, stories are what have brought us together and what continue to hold us here today.
Here's what we've all come to believe. Passion grows with each story told. This is a sentiment shared by many phenomenal leaders. I mean, look at what we're doing here today. But one of those people is most definitely Drew Dudley. As Emma mentioned, Drew was the keynote speaker at our November conference, and he brought us together for the love of stories and telling stories. Now, some of you may already know who Drew is, maybe from his TED Talks about lollipops, or because he's such a dear friend and mentor to this program. But one thing is for certain, we knew who he was. So when we had the chance to speak with him after our November conference, we treated him like a celebrity. And there was a certain humor in his inability to accept that from us, because for those of you who don't know, Drew is the face of leadership development. He's a best-selling author and critiques boardrooms of executives on the daily. But when he spoke with us, he was quiet and contemplative, and he asked us to tell our stories instead of telling his own. He told us not to apologize for our insights and involvements. He told us we inspired him. I think it took that moment for us to realize that what we have to say is valuable outside of this group, outside of this room. The things we do and the ways we choose to live each day have merit and can inspire other people. It would be so powerful if we could take all of those stories, all of our experiences, and condense them somewhere where people could go to get inspired or to know they're not alone. So, we wrote a book. Best Buds, stories and anecdotes to help you grow where you go. And I mean, it's beautiful. This cover was done by Kenna Morrison Ripley, a collection of found things, much like our group. And it is a labor of love for this group, absolutely. Each chapter is a love letter to a different type of leadership, a different aspect of leadership, and everyone poured their heart into their individual stories. This book is funny. It's insightful, it's raw and emotional, and I thought I knew everything about the members of this team, and I learned things from reading it. So, when we reached out to Drew and asked him if he would please write a foreword for our book, he was more than happy to. Because it would be impossible to pick a specific lesson from someone's chapter to share with you all today, I thought I'd like to read you an excerpt from his foreword to give you a taste of what Best Buds is like. And I get to stand here with the book and read out of it all officially, so that's really cool. Early in my career, I found myself seated next to a spiritual leader who regularly had thousands of people hang on his every word. This man pondered and explained life's biggest questions far better than I, and I struggled to find a question I thought was worthy of his intellect. My insecurities getting the better of me, I asked a question of which I've always been afraid. Do you ever worry that you're wrong? He tipped his head towards me quizzically. I mean, you've shared ideas with hundreds of thousands of people, I continued. Do you ever worry what you're saying is, well, wrong? That you're leading people down the wrong path? He smiled the guru smile, that soft, compassionate, understanding smile, and said, oh no, with absolute certainty. How can you be so confident, I asked. People trust what we tell them. What if we're wrong? You can only be wrong if you claim to speak truths, he said. If you speak only your truth, you cannot be wrong. Is your truth your stories? I asked. What you learn from them was his response. For 15 years, I've carried that insight with me, that the story is the basic unit of human understanding. I've tried to embody it by not only sharing my stories, but the stories of countless people who have convinced themselves that they can't or shouldn't share their own. They worry that their stories are too boring or too ordinary to matter to those around them. And yet, here you hold a collection of stories from young people who refuse to hide their insight. A collection of young people who refuse to believe that their stories are in any way less valuable, insightful, impactful, or important because of their age, background, or academic achievement. The act of sharing your story is inherently an act of vulnerability. And as such, what you hold in your hands is an act of courage. The courage we need to trust our young people to have, a courage we need to celebrate, a courage we aim to emulate.
The physical copy of Best Buds will be left with Miss Curry for all now and future RVLA students to be able to flick through whenever it is that they please. We're also currently working on a bit of a blog for you guys to look out for, which will have hopefully all of our chapters, and if not more, a bit of a creative space and an outlook for us for you guys to be able to read our stories so that students from all across the division can access it and utilize it, just as we hope that it inspires you guys as much as it is that it inspired us.
So, we'd like to thank you all for listening to us today. It was a long day, but it was so worth it. We'd like to thank the Year 3 team, who have become our chosen family. We'd like to thank Drew for believing in us, and most of all, thank Miss Curry. Oh my God, I'm gonna cry. Thank Miss Curry, the lifeblood of this program, because our stories are certainly brighter with you all in them. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much, Emma and Eden. Thank you to our audience members out there, whether you were with us all day today or whether you popped in and out when it fit for your schedule. We hope that you have been inspired by these 3 stories that leaders tell and feel that you can take away some action items to apply in your own lives.
Before we officially close out the day, we do have a few very important people without whom the day would not have been able to happen. Firstly, Gord Goss and Dan DePauli for their tech support. I really apologize if I'm butchering these names. Along with Allison Turner and Alex Sadul for the filming and AV support. Josie Hoisington and Lori Upshaw, the lovely ladies at RVS Reception, for helping us with all sorts of odds and ends and tasks in preparation for the day. Lance Reinhardt for Rocky View's Ed Center Facility Manager for helping us set up the event today. It was no small feat from turning this place around from being a polling station for the election last night into a presentation space. And again, thank you to our Board of Trustees, Superintendent Greg Luderbach, and Associate Superintendent of Learning, Lori Mayer, for your support of RVS Leadership Academy.
To send you all off today, we would like you to consider that the truth is that as leaders, we all have a story to tell, a narrative that says why this matters. Thank you, enjoy your day, and this concludes our Connect Summit 2023.